Hello everybody, welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Stephen Englander, and I hope I'm going to entertain you for the next half an hour, and if you want to say anything, please do contact me. Tonight we'll be looking at tax avoidance schemes, always an exciting thing. Remember, that's tax avoidance, not tax evasion. Is a difference, and we'll also be looking at big business mentality vis-a small business mentality, or as we like to say, the difference between a schmeckel and a schmuckel. So we'll also be asking some other questions like, why do customers buy from you? So just to let you know what's going on last week, we had our lovely interview with Donald Trump, which if you haven't watched it, do go and watch it. Tell me what you think, because it's my feeble attempt at humour. It seemed to go down quite well, and we've been toying with new ideas, and we're trying to get our version of Dragon's Den off the ground, which is going to be called, what's it going to be called? I forgot what it's going to be called. So, but anyway, the boardroom. No, it wasn't the boardroom. What was it? The deal breakers, deal makers. So, can't remember the name of my own show. So, deal breakers, an idea. We're looking for people to come on it who either want to raise finance, want to sell the business, want to gain investment, or are just looking for new blood, new partners to come and join them. So we'll talk you through a pitch, and we'll present it to people that could help you in that. So I thought that's quite a good thing. Deal breakers. If we think you could be good on the show, then we'll contact you as well if I know who you are, because we're also looking for experts to give their opinion on the business. So we're piloting next week. This week coming up, we've got some interesting interviews. I've got an interview with an industry leader in hospitality. He's been running some major hotels, and he's going to tell us how they're managing. So that might be of interest to you. And we have a feature. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about a particular tax loophole, if you like. And we've got a gentleman, Ken, coming on next week to do a podcast just about that on my Between the Spreadsheets show. So here we go. Now, I'm going to, as usual, we try and break this show up into different sections so I can talk to you about some business news. And the most interesting bit of business news that I found this week, because I found it quite funny and it relates to some of the subjects I want to talk about, is Mr. Bezos is retiring. Multi-million-pound company, and he's retiring. I think it came out today. He's retiring. What interested me is that it's an interesting alert that he's retiring today on the same day that the company has just been fined something like $65 million for trying to steal the tips off their drivers. And I mean, honestly, this is one of my biggest gripes about big business. It's not so much that they have unfair competition. It's not unfair that they're a bit ruthless. It's not even that they play the market. It's just that the only thing they're interested in is money. And no matter what they say, and I can't stand the hypocrisy, what type of company tries to steal off not only it's their drivers, but of people who are generally on minimum wage or slightly above that. I've been in business I've been in accounts direct for 31 years now, and before that I was in business since I was 17. I'm now 58, so that's 41 years I've been in business. And I don't think I've really come across anyone, I mean there's always the odd crook, but I don't really think I've come across anyone that has gone out of their way to cheat their employers or really cheat their customers or anyone else. So it just says, what will they do for money? I mentioned another time that I wasn't referring to Tesco's in particular, but my opinion is that big business and supermarkets, they will poison you to make a few quid if they could get away with it. This is how I think of them, because I don't believe that they give a damn about anyone except making money. I've gone into this. I think you know my opinions. It's it's awful, and this type of mentality, it's not just restricted to Amazon. Now look at something else as well. When a company gets a fine for doing something really horrible, what you're telling that company and the rest of the world is that it's okay. So now, the next time they do it, they know it's going to cost them roughly £65 million, and they can build it into their costs. So it's not teaching them not to do it. It's just giving them a basis to set their prices, and it's another expense that they've got to build in, and they can make a decision whether they can work it or make it work or get a bit make it a bit trickier, just a bit slimier. And I'm sorry if I'm quite aggressive about this, but I'm not really sorry. I just think it's awful, and I don't think you should copy this type of mentality. But now that I know that the Amazon drivers' tips is just merely deducted from their wages, maybe we should look at another way of rewarding them. But don't let them get away with stuff like this. It isn't nice. It was interesting. We've been teaching our PR manager, and we've been teaching him some nice Jewish words, and he's put one together himself, and he's called it a corporate schmuckle. And I think that's great, because there's a difference between sort of reacting and finding the loopholes to actually going out and, which is basically a corporate schmuckle, which is going out and deliberately seeking to break laws or to get around laws that should be moral laws anyway. So what would I do? I'd say put them in prison, strip them of the assets. This is an awful thing to do. Poisoning people isn't good either. There is this is what I was bringing to with the big business mentality v small business mentality. A big business mentality is about making money, and that's fine as long as you follow the guidelines. You don't go too far from morals, not their morals, but morals, public morals. I've not worked in big business a lot, but I know it's about following rules. I know it's about tick boxes, and I know it's about doing the due diligence. I've worked a lot with small businesses, and I think that we should. A lot of people look at small businesses as the same way with that we look at insurance salesmen, and we think they're only about making money, but they'll do anything to make money, and it's not about anything else. And I can see where that comes from, but it's not really fair, and it's not really true. I think a lot of business people should look at their business as being their career, and look at establishing their career by establishing their business. It's like, going back to the insurance salesman, it's not fair to have that image. I mean, if you think of an insurance salesman, you think of the foot in the door, talking a load of crap to get you to sell whatever the product they're selling. But I know quite a few insurance salesmen, and the vast majority of them don't understand why people don't have life protection cover or health insurance, because they do believe in the product. So they go out and sell this product, not because it makes them money, because there's not that much money in selling insurance unless you're one of the big boys, and the commissions aren't that great and they've gone down a lot, but because they believe people should have life insurance. I'm an accountant. I don't sell life insurance, but I do believe that people should have life insurance, because you never know what happens tomorrow, and these days you're more likely to get ill than actually die, except for maybe COVID. So you need to protect yourself about not being able to work, and that's even harder when you run a small business. So you do need to look at these things. But sorry, I digress. When you've got a small business, you should go out there and you should develop that business as something very personal, because it is. Looking at this, it's like many years ago, I was in the cash and carry business. I used to import, and a lot of business was struggling because China and India and Korea and low-income countries were supplying goods, and we couldn't compete with them. A lot of small manufacturers went to the wall. But really, I think we've matured as a society, and we realise that we shouldn't be buying on price. I mean, at the end of the day, buying on price is you don't always get what you really need just because you buy the cheapest. I mean, can I ask you what car you drive? And I bet there's more people shouting out a BMW or a Ford than they are a Fiat or some old car like a Fiat that's not as good as a Ford. If I say, what car do you want? You might say a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or a high-end Jag or something. But the point is, what's the difference between a Jag, a high-end Jag or a BMW, and the cheapest Fiat you can buy? They both do the same thing, but one does it in a bit more style. But the point is, we're not buying on price. And that's what we've got to look at your customers. What is it that your customers want from you? What why are customers buying off you? I mean, I had a lovely chat with a guy last night online, never met him before. He's coming onto one of my podcasts in the future, the next few weeks, and he basically makes shoes. He makes high-end. I mean, it's not that high-end. It's no more expensive than you buy from some of the big department stores, but he actually makes them for you. And he's invited me up to his shop, and he's invited me up to come and have a glass of wine with him, come and meet his staff, come and sit there. He'll open day or night for me. And I thought, what a lovely service. I can actually imagine sat there, glass of wine, cup of coffee. I bet they'd even give me a foot massage. So that's incredible service. And it's the service that people buy. Sometimes just phoning someone and asking how they are is enough. It's about service. It's not about making money. You're not looking, well, you might be, but that's a different story. You're not looking to grow your business into a massive big firm. You're looking to get the best business you can have. You know, my father, as you know, makes handbags, and he's very proud of his handbags. He loves designing the bags. He loves seeing it out there. In fact, when I was younger, I could go to my dad and ask him for money, and he'd always give me. He'd never, I'd say, Dad, can I have £10? And he'd never say what for or no. He'd just give me the £10. It's funny. But if I was in his warehouse and I knocked over a few purses on the floor, he'd go mad. It could be a 50p purse, and he'd go mad because he had pride in the product. And if you've got pride in the product, you want people to have it. And that's a success. That will create a successful business. Maximise your profits because you're giving value over and above the product you sell. And I think that is very, very important. Just incidentally, something that I found funny. We're training some of our sales support staff, and one of the things that came up was that, well, what do I do if someone's rude to me? And we thought, well, why should people be rude to you? I've never really had it. But if they are, let's collect insults. And that's what I'd like you to do for me. If you've got customers that are rude to you, or have silly objections to buying your products, or say nasty things about you online, would you send me them? Because I think we can have some fun with that. I won't give any names out, but I think we can have some fun with that. I know it's a bit warped, but let's have a go with it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. By the way, a big business isn't about career. If you want to turn your business into a big firm, I think I'm going to, if I've got time, I'll talk to you about how we can franchise or how we can help you turn into a PLC. If I've got time, if not, I'll cover it again. GDPR. Have you heard of GDPR? It's new laws about data protection and who you can contact and who you can't contact, and. Now, just let me just go somewhere else for a minute. In a set of accounts, you have something called bad debts, and then you have another ledger called provision for bad debts. So that means that you can claim against profits to reduce your profits any bad debts that you have, but then you have something called a provision for bad debts. Now, provision for bad debts is a potential expense, a potential liability, but it hasn't happened yet. So even though you can prepare for it and show it in your accounts, it's not really a tax-deductible expense. So just because you think you're going to have a bad debt doesn't mean to say you've got a bad debt. And it's about risk. So you've got to define at what point a debt becomes a bad debt. Now, HMRC have their definition of it. I mean, they say, well, if you're not being paid by 6 months, you can write it off, or if you've appointed court proceedings and it's failed, then you can count it. But there's other forms of risk, and one form of risk is GDPR, because if you're in breach of that, you can have fines and you can have claims, and there can be quite a lot of money. So what some clever tax people, experts, have come up with is to argue a point of when a potential fine or a potential claim is a big enough risk to say it's going to happen. And HMRC are basically saying, this is simplification, that if you can do a risk assessment and prove that you have risk, then they will allow you tax relief on that risk. So there's people out there, I'm assuming it's true because otherwise HMRC wouldn't let them have it, but there's people out there that are putting, assessing this risk and saying, you know what, I could be at risk for £100,000, and that £100,000 can then be put into a set of accounts as a loss, as a liability, as a potential problem, and HMRC will give tax liability, give that as a tax refund situation. So you can actually, if you've got £100,000 of potential loss, you don't have to spend that money. You just have to prove that you've got that loss. That means you can get around £20,000 back in tax. There's people doing it for a potential £1 million claim. It depends on the size of your business and then the size of the loss that we can look at. But that means that then you can claim for the year before because they'll allow 2 years of claim. So it's quite a lucrative thing if you feel that you've got risk, or we can create risk. Why I'm bringing this up is because it's a provision. Now, when you've got a provision, it means it hasn't happened. So a risk is a risk at day one, but day two it becomes less of a risk, and 12 months down the line it becomes less of a risk again. So over a certain period of time, that risk reduces. And what that means is that HMRC expect that money to be paid back. Now, the point here is that there are firms out there that are saying we can get you tax backs by doing this, and the revenue are quite open to it. It is a thing there. But where I don't like it is that these firms, or a lot of firms, are charging 30, 40, 50% of the money they get back to you, but they're not really getting it back. You've got to look at it as an interest-free loan. So if you're willing to pay 30, 40% of the money they get back to you, and then end up having, a very strong percentage of people will have to pay this money back, then that's fine. But do be aware that you're not really getting a tax refund to keep. You're getting a tax fund while that liability is there. I mean, if you do incur the liability, then obviously you don't need to give the tax relief back on that. So if you do get approached by people offering you grand tax saving schemes, all I can say to you is that some of them are very clever, very well thought out, but some perhaps they're not being painted. So do run them by me, because I don't want you to miss out on them. On the other hand, I don't want you to get drawn into nonsense. So that's the GDPR. But it's always good to do some sort of risk assessment on your business. Where am I likely to fall foul? Where am I likely to have problems? So do bear that in mind. And so what I've got here is it's a dilemma for me, because I want to promote this, but on the other hand, I think it's quite immoral to charge so much money on that type of thing. Anyway, I was having a chat before about something else now. So I'm going to look at just little bits that I want people to understand. It all builds up into a big picture, and the more you sort of get involved with my weekly podcasts and my weekly show and all my educational type presentations, the more you'll see how it fits in, because it's not linear. I can't start at 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all over the place. So you pick and choose what it is that suits you at that moment. But just coming away from this particular subject again, I want to look at the life cycle of a product or a company, and what happens with that. The idea here is that when you launch a new product or a new company, you get that sort of response, hopefully, and then it falls, and then it steadies off, or it dies. And the idea of a good accountant is to spot the life cycle and to spot the ups and downs and the general trend of the company and indeed its products. The reason we do that is because what we want to do is we want to every so often put something in that brings interest up and keeps the product up there, or we want to measure how it goes, and if we say, well, if this here is where we want to be, then we want to keep it there. So we it's very important to measure data. Now, I'd like you to go and get some CRM software. I use Salesforce. It's not the cheapest, but it is very good. But there's loads around, so that we can start collating that data and measure what's going on. And I guarantee you that when you see dips, it's a bit like a cash flow. You might see you need a dip in next July. So if you start planning for that dip of cash now, you've got more chance of getting it than getting up to July. So, what do I do? And it's the same with a business life cycle, a product life cycle. You can see there's an ebb. So what do we do to bring it back up again? Well, there's ways, there's new products, there's new ideas, there's new promotions, there's all sorts. I'm so looking forward to COVID to finishing, and we can go back to start properly our live events. Anyway, right, it seems we do have enough time. I can talk about PLC and costings. I look at a PLC, a public limited company, as the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. It's what we strive for. It's to be the best business we can be. And now we're talking about going from a small business into a big business, which I know a lot of people aren't interested in doing, but I don't want you to not do it because you think it's unattainable. Because I've got some great deals out there for people that if you want to float your company, it's the best way of keeping your company but making fortunes on it. I mean, I know a couple of absolute pillocks. They were in debt or all sorts of things, and now they're worth tens of millions of pounds, and it really bugs me of how they did that when they can't even read a balance sheet. But I know how they did it, and I know how it all works, so I can show you how to do it. The thing is, the first thing to do without getting, if you don't know what a PLC is and the benefits, do me a favour and just go and Google it. Save me talking all night on things that I'd like you to know. But it's a great way of making money reasonably quickly and a lot of prestige. And to me, if I ever floated my company, it's not about money. It's not about, there's always that in it, but it's about that feeling of achievement, and you've actually done something. It's not for everybody. But the first thing to do is take out maybe some sort of appraisal. Some sort of go through the emotions, see where your business is, and see whether you're suitable for this type of thing. It's rarely the business that's not suitable. It's usually the owners that aren't suitable. But we can. I know people in the city, and at the end of the day, if I see a project that I think could work, I'll subsidise the costs for you. It still costs you something, but it won't cost you hundreds or even tens of thousands. And I will subsidise it if I like it. And so if you do have any ideas, just let me know. We'll go into this in a bit more detail at another date. But I think we can do it. I think we can. And something, even if you never float, the discipline that you learn in getting your systems in order, getting your house in order, knowing what money you need from year to year, knowing what facilities you need, you just sleep so much better. You're not worried every day at the last minute, and it makes you look at the strengths and weaknesses of your business. So floating a business is great, and the first thing is to do an appraisal of your company. I don't do it. There are specialists that do this. I'm just saying I'll subsidise the costs if that's what you want to do. So do contact me. So I'm coming to my questions section. Let's see what questions I've got. I've got Joanne from Stockport. I've recently lost some jobs to competitors who charge more than I do. That something that's actually quite interesting. That you should. So you're pitching. I'm not sure what you do, but you're pitching presumably some sort of product or service, and people are buying off your competitors even though you're cheaper. And that goes in with what I was saying before. People don't always buy on price. So without knowing more about you, you can always contact me and give me some more details. But without knowing more about you, I can't answer much more. But what I can say is that people often buy from you and make a decision to use you, and it's a confidence thing. It's how much faith do they have in you. So it's a funny thing. Even though I don't like the big firms, I know that if things go wrong, they've got insurance. that to make sure that things don't go wrong. You know, if they do go wrong, the insurance company will pay out. I also know that they've got a reputation that even though they'll pull stunts if they get away with it, most of them don't want to pull stunts in case they get caught and it ruins their reputation. So it might be something there. Maybe you're not giving people that confidence to actually deal with you. Sometimes, and it's actually happened to me, that people have. I've given a price. I mean, there's one years and years ago where I gave a price to somebody for doing their accounts, and somebody else gave a higher price, and they went with the higher price. And when I asked them why, they said, well, your fee was too good to be true. And I showed them what I'd be doing, and that the price they were paying was actually too, it was just, they were being overcharged. And, you know, you've always got to charge a price that enables you to do the job. And these people actually reported me, the accountants, because they did in the end agree that they were being, should we say, ripped off. And they did agree that I was doing nothing wrong. Sorry, I wasn't undercutting or cutting corners. And they actually reported me to the accountancy body I belong to. And they came on to me because it's lowballing. You know, when you do a set of accounts for people, you've got to be in a position that you've got the facilities to do the job properly. You can't cut corners, because if you cut corners, you're breaking laws. So if something costs a fiver, it costs a fiver. There's no point saying it's $2.50, because you can't do that. So the accountants bodies would look at accountants that's lowballing, that's trying to undercut people. But they came along, looked at me, wasted a day of my time, and in the end they agreed that I wasn't lowballing, I wasn't undercharging. This other firm were indeed ripping people off. So, but it could be that sometimes a price, it sounds too good to be true, so they go with what they know. Or Doris next door has said, oh no, they're good, these people, but that's all it takes sometimes. What's next? Joe Smith in Derbyshire. When do you think COVID will be over, and when do you think we'll be back to business as usual? When do I think COVID will be over? Personally, I think March the 24th at 3:27 p.m. I think that's when we'll all be back to normal, and everything will be hunky-dory. We've got to prepare for that. I'm no soothsayer, but looking at the way things are going, businesses are desperate to get moving again, so they'll take every chance to get going. The government wants us to get moving again, and we don't have to have everyone inoculated before things can start some semblance of going back to normal. I think as more and more people are getting inoculated, it's making society a lot safer, and the prevention stuff in place now I think will stay, and I actually think probably March, April, I think we'll start going back to some level of normality. And I think maybe August, things will go back to, never back to the way we were, if that's what you want anyway. I don't. But I think as far as business is concerned, I think by September we'll start, it'll be a bad dream. And I think certainly by Christmas time, I think we'll all have a great Christmas. Business-wise, and I think lots of people will find that they can suddenly start expanding. But don't give in. We're close, and hopefully now you've realised that you don't need bricks and mortar as much. You can work a lot more on social media, online. You can pull customers in day out. You can give more personal service. Maybe if you get better quality services with people that appreciate you, then maybe you won't need as many customers, because you're getting the price that you are worth. So when people value you, they will pay for you, and you've just got to prove that you've got value. You've got to keep your marketing right. But I honestly think that we certainly next year is a bumper year, and this year we will start the second half of this year. I guarantee that we will start making money again, and business start churning over again. So hopefully that's the case. I hope you keep well, and if you've got any questions for me or anything you do want to talk about, do contact me, send me an email. I'm on all the social media groups. Join one of my advisory groups. follow me on YouTube, and I wish you a happy week, and I'll see you next Thursday with some more valuable information. Take care. Bye-bye.